M.I.I. Today I have a quick update on the national debt for you for the third quarter. So for the US, the fiscal financial calendar is October 1st through December for the first quarter, January through March for the second quarter, April through June for the third quarter, which we're currently in, and then July through September for the fourth quarter. The Peter G. Peterson Foundation projects that the national debt as of May 19th will be $36.2 trillion. The website also states that per American, that'll be $106,114 per American, and per U.S. taxpayer, it'll be $323,000.50. Now, according to the USDebtClock.org, it states that the U.S. national debt will be $36.8 trillion as of May 19, 2025. The website also claims that U.S. citizens owe $107,684, and debt per taxpayer is $323,050. $654 billion is the difference between the two reporting sites. And that's the figures that I have highlighted in bold on the previous two slides. U.S. national debt breakdown. U.S. individuals and institutions are owed $15.7 trillion from the national debt. Social Security is owed $6.6 trillion from the national debt. U.S. Civil Service Retirement Fund is owed $2.2 trillion from the national debt. U.S. Military Retirement Fund is owed $784.2 billion from the national debt. U.S. Oil Export Fund is owed $597.5 billion from the national debt. China and Hong Kong. The U.S. owes China $3.5 trillion from the national debt. Japan. The U.S. owes Japan $2.3 trillion from the national debt. The United Kingdom. The U.S. owes the UK $522.8 billion from the national debt. The U.S. owes Brazil and all other remaining nations it's indebted to a combined total of $4.8 trillion. So adding up all the known international debts owed as of May 19, 2025, the U.S. owes the rest of the world $11.2 trillion in change, out of the total national debt of $36.8 trillion. Finding the internal U.S. national debt. So we already established on the previous slide that the U.S. owes the rest of the world $11.2 trillion in change. So to find out what debt internally belongs to America and its citizens and U.S. entities, corporations, etc., here in the middle I took the total national debt of $36.8 trillion minus the owed debt to the rest of the world of $11.2 trillion in change, and I ended up with $25.5 trillion in change is the internal US national debt. So $25.5 trillion is the amount of debt internally here within the US that is up for settlement between all entities the debt is owed to. So that means US taxpayers, US corporations, etc. So we now know that the US owes the rest of the world a projected $11.2 trillion in change. But what is unknown publicly is how indebted the rest of the world is to America. So how much money does the UK owe America? How much money does Spain owe America? How much money does China, Japan owe America? So on and so forth. But what I'm getting at here is those debts between each nation can be settled just like debts between you and a family member or a friend. Fellow debt trackers. So I wanted to take a moment here to shout out Brian Kim and Lena Petrov's YouTube channels. They run very big YouTube channels that cover worldly financial issues, taxes, tariffs, each nation's debt. So instead of just relying on my take on what we can do with the United States debt, you can check out their channels. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to the channel, and I hope to see you next time.